Hi there, it's Bonnie with So Inspired by Bonnie with another Tuesday's tip. First off, I want to welcome everybody back. It's been quite a while since I've done any live videos, but we're back, and today we're going to discuss how to cut GlitterFlex with your Cameo cutting machine. Now, a lot of the tips that I'm going to share with you today apply to any cutting machine, so don't worry if you have a different type of machine like the Scan and Cut or the Cricut. A lot of the things I'm going to tell you for the Cameo are going to apply to those other cutting machines as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, some of you may not know what GlitterFlex is, so I'm going to start from the beginning and give a little lowdown with that. GlitterFlex is a type of heat transfer vinyl that's fusible. So it has a glue on the back that you can't really feel it. It just feels like vinyl back there, but when you apply heat to it, it activates that glue and it becomes, it adheres to whatever you're pressing it onto. Now, you can use an iron or you could use a heat press. Either one works fine. With an iron, you're going to want to use a heat of about a cotton setting, which it's around 330 degrees. So if you have a heat press, it's going to be somewhere between 320 and 330 on your temperature. You're going to want to heat that for about 17 to 20 seconds in one spot, and then peel it while it's warm. Press it again for about 2 to 5 seconds to make sure you've got everything in there secure, and you're good to go. One word of caution: do not use spray water with it, any kind of like spray starch or moisture with your iron, not a steam iron. You want a nice dry iron to get a nice fuse with this. Alright, so GlitterFlex comes with a clear carrier on the front where the shiny side is. That clear carrier is removed, but not until after you cut it. The clear carrier has a couple of good reasons for it being there. One, it gets you from point A to point B, that being from the cutting machine, so you can carry it on over to your project or your fabric, whatever. And the other is it protects your cutting mat. So you're going to put the GlitterFlex face down on your cutting mat, not right side up. You don't want to see the sparkly side towards you. You want the sparkly side to go down. So here you can kind of see the sparkly side and the clear carrier. That is what you're going to place face down onto your cutting mat. So let's go ahead and get the cutting mat ready. I always keep my cutting mat with this green protective sheet on top, sorry about that, because as you know, these are sticky, and if I were to just store it like this, the stickiness would wear off a lot sooner. So again, I'm going to place this in the upper left corner, just because I like to go left to right. I guess it's because that's how I read, but I always start in the upper left corner, and I just line everything up, and I push it down with my hands just to get it nice and stuck on my cutting mat. But you can see I've got the back side facing up and the clear carrier is face down on that cutting mat. Okay, I'm going to set that aside and we're going to go to our software. And now this isn't really a discussion or a lesson on how to do your software, so I'm not going to get into it too deeply. But one of the things you want to do, no matter if you're just cutting out a design for your embroidery or a design for a koozie or a design for an apron, whatever you're cutting out, you want to do it in mirror image, because again, you're putting that face down, so it needs to cut from the back side. So when it flips back over, you'll have it go in the right direction. So you want to keep that in mind. Now with the Silhouette software, I like to mirror image my design right in the design stage of the software. So if I'm designing something on my page, I'll go up to Object, and then I'll hit Mirror, and I'll flip it horizontally, and that will give me a mirror image of my design. Then I'm simply going to go over to Send, and I'm going to choose what kind of material I'm going to cut. And in this instance, I'm going to choose the heat transfer glitter as my option of what I'm going to cut. It's going to choose all the default settings for me. Now, always do a test cut first. There's an option down here right on your send button, or right next to the send button that says test. Hit the test and it'll do a little triangle. Now, I did this beforehand and I did my test and it did great. And then I cut out the design and it didn't do so great. Just like our machines, our sewing and embroidery machines, we kind of know when they're struggling and having trouble. And we definitely know when they're in deep trouble, because they make all kinds of noise and racket that we're not used to. So the same can be said for your cutting machine. You're gonna know after you've used it a couple of times when it sounds like it's doing a good cut and when it sounds like, oh my gosh, it sounds like it's tearing up my paper, it sounds like it's tearing up my vinyl. So listen to it and you'll know. Well, going back to my story, when I tried this before with the design I'm going to cut today, it didn't sound right. It sounded like it was chewing up my vinyl. I thought, what's wrong? I did my test cut and it did fine, and now it's not doing so hot when I'm doing a little bit different design. And what it was my design was a little bit more intricate than the simple little test. And you can see this is the design that we're going to cut out today. Sip, sew, sleep, and repeat. And there's, you know, a big swirl on the S, and there's little cuts around the E's. There's actually some pretty tiny cuts on this particular design. So what I needed to do was I needed to slow that default setting down. It was at about a 5 or 6 on my default setting. I slowed that clear down to a speed of 3. Everything else I kept the same at default. I kept the force at 33. I did a single pass. You could do 2 passes if you want. That's not a problem. And then again, I put the speed at 3. But that was it. That was all I did, was I changed the speed and slowed it down so that it could have a little bit more time to do the cuts properly. So I'm going to go ahead and load my cutting mat in here to the Cameo. And you just want to align it to the outer. There's little lines, or ridges, I should say, where to put your cutting mat. And you line it up on the outermost ridge there on the left, and you will be fine. It should be in between them. Then I'm going to hit enter to load my mat, and it's just going to pull it on in. And then I'm going to click on send, so it'll send it from my computer to my Silhouette Cameo. Now here it says, do you want to send it as mirrored, or do you want to send it as is? Now I've already mirrored imaged it in the design phase of my program, so I don't want to mirror image it again. And I'll tell you why I don't really like to mirror image at the last instance here when I'm trying to send it. Right now it's on my cutting mat in the upper leftmost corner of the page. Pretend this is my cutting mat, and it's in the upper left corner. That's where my my GlitterFlex is. If I were to tell the machine right now to go ahead and mirror image it when I'm just ready to send it to be cut, it's going to flip not just the design, but it's flipping the whole page, or the whole cutting mat. So now my design is going to cut in the upper right corner of my cutting mat. So it's not going to be in the right spot. So that's why I like to mirror image my design at the designing stage of the software, not when I'm ready to send it to the cutting machine. Just a little tidbit there to keep, it helped keep me straight. First time I tried mirror imaging it here, I thought it was just going to mirror image the design when I was ready to send it, and I couldn't understand why it kept going off to the right side of my mat. Once I figured out how the computer or the software was thinking, and it is logical when you really think about it, then I understood it. So I would know to change either my vinyl on the mat or go back and flip it in the design stage. There's no problem with going back and forth between the two. Okay, so we're ready to cut. I'm not gonna mirror image it here where I'm trying to send it. I'm just going to send it as is, and it's going to send it to my cutting machine, and it's going to cut out the design. Now you can kind of hear it. It's not struggling. I'm going to turn this a little bit, and I'm turning the wrong way. Oh. It's here. You're just going to have to trust me. You can hear it, but you can't see it probably. But it's cutting over there. And what it's cutting is the GlitterFlex. And I showed you this design. I'm going to show it to you real close so that you can see how the GlitterFlex actually sparkles. So it's adding a lot of pizzazz to the little koozie. Now GlitterFlex can be used with embroidery, or as I did on this koozie, without any embroidery whatsoever. So it's really versatile. But you need that clear carrier to get it from the cutting machine to your koozie or your project, whatever it is you're going to work on. And I had something else that I was going to show you, and I've lost it, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and talk about the weeding tools. Now what you're going to weed are those areas that you don't want. You want to take those away. So Designs by Dawn has some great weeding tools. She has the Weed and Pick tweezers and the Weed and Pick picker. And they're really nice in that, excuse me, they have a non-slip gripper, kind of rubber around the handles on them, which is really nice. No affiliation or anything, I just really like her stuff. So those are really nice. And then there's also, I found, and they're nice and sturdy. They're not real flimsy or anything. And then there's this other set that I just got. I haven't had it as long as I've had the Weed and Pick and Weed and Tweezers there by Designs by Dawn. But this one's called iVyne, I-V-Y-N-E, and I found it on Amazon. And it's a nice little set of 4 tools, and they weren't expensive, but they're really very nice tools. You can see here they come in a nice little case, and they have a little rubber padding to set them all in. And they have, like the Weed and Pick, a very sharp point on the tweezers. And they also have a really nice, you know, picking tool that's really sharp. But this whole pack, it was under $15 for the pack of 4, so it was really reasonable there off of Amazon. Okay, what you're going to do next is you're going to unload your GlitterFlex from the cutting machine, and you're going to peel this off of your mat, and then you're going to take that little protective sheet, and you're going to put that right back on that mat so it doesn't get de-sticky-tized and dirty. And I've got a lot of things going on here. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to gently, you're going to find a corner here, and I'm going to lower this for just a second so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to lower this. Find a corner and gently pull the design away, getting rid of those sections that you don't want to save. Now, I say that, but you're going to want to save whatever you can, because you can use the stuff that you don't use today. You can save these little scraps and use them on other projects later on. But you see, just gently pull, take your time. This isn't something you can really just yank off and hurry through. Although it's tempting when you're doing this in front of a big audience. You just gently pull this off, and this is what you come up with. You can sort of see that. Now, if you look at this, and let me find a blank. That's what I was looking for earlier. if you look at this and get your blank koozie, and I'm not going to put this down just yet, and I just kind of slopped it on there real quick. You'll see that I have yet to cut out, or I shouldn't say cut out, but I haven't pulled out the little spots like the E's, inside the E's, or the A, or the E up there, the big E on sew. So that's where you're going to use your tweezers or your pick, and you're going to come in here and you're going to pick those out individually with your tweezers or your picking tool, and that's again weeding, like you're weeding weeds out of your lawn. You're picking these little weeds out of the sections you don't want them. And if you have a light box, this is a great place to use a light box because you can see through it a little bit better. I was running out of room here to put something else on the table, and so I didn't add the light box to what I'm working with right now. But you're just going to come in here and they pop right off. It's not difficult to find these little sections. And they just, like I said, they pop right off. I think I've got everything now. And once you've weeded everything off with your little tweezers or picking tool, then you're going to take your design, flip it over, and the clear carrier has a little bit of stickiness to it, nothing harsh. It's not going to be a permanent stick, but I've just sort of finger pressed that in place, and you see how that lines up there. Now, if I were to try to cut something out and not have the clear carrier to take it from point A to point B, do you see now how difficult that might be to line up my sew where it's at a perfect angle, and to line up my sip and sleep and repeat so that they were all straight? And not to mention having the eye above, or the dot above my eye, it would be kind of tricky to say the least. But when you have the clear carrier, it makes it really easy because everything stays in place how you designed it in your software, and you can just get it on there. Now, what you do after you have this in place, exactly where you want it, say on the koozie, for example, but this applies to anything, whether it be an apron or a quilt or what have you. Once you have it in place, and this is for objects that you're not, well, I suppose it would work with embroidery too. We'll go back. It's a little different, but the same. You're going to take a pressing sheet, and that can be, I prefer a thin pressing sheet, nothing too heavy. Not a heavy Teflon sheet. If you have a really thin Teflon sheet, that works great. A lot of times I'll just pick up a scrap of cotton. That works really well. And just put that scrap of cotton on top, get your iron at a hot setting, and no steam again, and press for about 17 to 20 seconds. Gently start to peel this off of your koozie, or your project, I should say. And if you see any section kind of lift a little bit with the clear carrier, put it back down, press for, 5 or 10 more seconds just to see that you've got everything in place good. And gently start to peel it back again, and if it's not lifting, continue to peel it off. Then go ahead and press it for another 2 to 5 seconds just to make sure that glue on the back has really been activated well and will stick everything down permanently for you. Now, if you're doing embroidery and you've cut out your design, again, in reverse, you would take it, carry, with the clear carrier, and put it on top of the placement line of your embroidery, and then you could place it right in the hoop if you wanted to, for the 17 to 20 seconds with a keep the clear carrier on there, and then put the cotton on top of that, the cotton press cloth, and then press just like I mentioned before here with the koozie. And then again, peel it back. If you see anything to start to lift up, it's not been pressed long enough. Go ahead and put the iron back down for another, 5 to 10 seconds, and, rinse and repeat until nothing is peeling up when you peel off that clear carrier. Peel it while it's warm, and then go ahead and press it again with the press cloth for another 5 seconds or so after you're all done. But that's all there is to it. It's really pretty slick. And again, this is you know, this is just with the clear carrier on it. Obviously, I haven't pressed it. Again, no steam. Just press it with a dry iron. Or if you have a heat press, that works great too. But here's how that project ends, and you can see how that GlitterFlex just really, really sparkles. Isn't that cool? Okay, so I just have to show you, what I'm working on lately. I have a little bit of show and tell. So I'm working on a new kitty cat design set, and I haven't even taken it out of the hoop. I haven't trimmed the back, so there's threads on the back. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this little kitty. You can see how that adds a lot of sparkle to your embroidery designs. So GlitterFlex works great on embroidery. It works great without any embroidery. So it's really versatile. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope if you were a little bit intimidated to try cutting GlitterFlex on your cutting machine, that's not going to be an issue anymore. I hope you'll go to our website at www.soinspiredbybonnie.com. Sign up for our newsletter so that you will find out the latest tips, releases, sales, and when we're going to be doing our Tuesdays tips and times, because we announce them in our newsletters as well. So until next time, bye-bye for now.